All right, what's up, everybody? We're going to jump in here. We got the Falcons podcast starting up here in just a moment. We're going to connect our friends over there on Facebook and on Twitter. All right. Once we get up and live, we're going to get going. I see some people have already starting to jump into the podcast. We are live. All right. What's up, everybody? This is Garrett Chapman, your host of the Falcons podcast with me, Garrett Chapman. Really excited to jump in here with all of you. All the folks over there at Falcons on SI, make sure to go check out that content, si.com/NFL/Falcons, or you can just type in Falcons on SI on Google, whatever is easiest for you. You can get all kinds of great stuff. Because honestly, week one is come and gone. So we have a lot to get into here on the podcast. But while we are here, give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter if you're following me there. If you are following on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It is the best way to stay up to date on everything Atlanta Falcons. I see some folks are starting to jump in here. Christian, what's up, my guy? Dantes Jackson, he is in here. He was ready. He was waiting. He is ready to rock and roll. Thank you so much for jumping in here. But we've got a big show set up for you guys here tonight. We're going to jump into some of the biggest reactions from week one. I have 4 things that I like, 4 things that I don't like. But we're also going to jump in here and talk about the Falcons kicking issues. And that's where we're going to start here. But I'm going to take your questions. Make sure to drop those into the comments below. Just whatever you got. It could be talking about Vikings. We can talk Bucks. We can talk all kinds of stuff. Just whatever you got. And I'll try to jump to as many of those as I can here over the next hour or so. But we got to start here. And unfortunately, it is the same place that we were about this time, not this time, but this time last year, throughout the course of the season. Younghoe Koo. And I love Younghoe Koo. I think Younghoe Koo is a great guy. And look, he went to my alma mater. I was a Georgia Southern guy. I want the guy to do well, but he's struggling. And his struggles continued on Sunday. He misses the 44-yard game winner, or excuse me, the game-tying kick that he could have had against Tampa Bay. But don't forget, he also clanged one 36-yarder off of the upright, kind of bounces into get the 3 points there. But you're asked to do one thing as a kicker, and you're asked to make your kicks. And it's especially frustrating given the gravity of the game. It's week one. It's a divisional opponent against the team who has won this division 4 years in a row. You did everything in your power. Basically, the offense wills yourself to get it down to makeable range, and he misses it. And it was not even particularly close. So it's frustrating just as a fan, as a member of the media who covers this team. I know that it heard the reaction in the crowd. And look, you saw the reaction from Younghoe Koo. I mean, the guy literally crumpled to the ground. We saw him slam his helmet on the ground. But you got to make the kick, dude. Like, you got to make the kick. And this is, like you talk about a zero-sum business. There is no more of a zero-sum business than the kicking position. It's the most isolated position in the sport. And it doesn't matter how it happens either. Like, if he clanks it in, he doesn't make pretty kicks. That was never really his thing. But he would loft them. They'd float. Like, punch him in or anything like that. But they would go in. And Raheem Morris talked a bit about that on Monday. It's the fact that he can't necessarily sit there and coach these guys up on it. Because, I mean, he's not a kicking coach. I mean, he's a football coach. You know, and like, you have guys in house who do that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's just not good enough right now. You're not making your kicks. And as of now, the results aren't there. And so the Falcons are looking at other options. I mean, he's 73.5% of his kicks over the last season, dating back to last year. He's missed specifically in that range of 40 plus. It's been very bad. And look, if you're in the NFL, you have to make the gimmies. You have to make the gimmies, and you have to make somewhere in the range of 85+% of your 40 plus yard kicks. He's closer to 60% over the last year or so. It's unacceptably bad. It's just not good enough of 40 plus yard kicks. You have to be able to come in and make that. And especially in a type of position where you can go pick a guy up off the street tomorrow. They did it last year with Riley Patterson, and he was below average, admittedly. He left a lot to be desired just in terms of how he compared necessarily to Younghoe. But, you know, you can go find somebody. You know, that's how they found Younghoe Koo in the first place. And then he comes in here between 2019 and 2023. He makes almost 90% of his kicks. And I don't know if we can get back to him making that. I don't know if he's going to have the leash that's long enough to do that. But I think that he's going to get the opportunity on Sunday. I think he is going to be the starting kicker for the Falcons. I have not heard anything to the contrary of that. But, I mean, last year he deals with this hip injury, and I wonder how much of that, it's such a mental thing, kicking a football like that. I wonder how much of it is in his head. Because he talks about kicking the ground on Monday. I don't know what to make of that. He kicks the turf, and he misses the kick. All I know is that he missed the kick. He had the hip injury last year. I don't know how much it's still weighing on him. He says he feels good mentally. He says he feels good physically. So sorry, you got to make the kick. And then it goes back into what we saw over the summer. And look, they signed Lenny Krieg to be competition, but the more I go back and think about this, maybe this is a little revisionist history. But how much of a kicker battle was there actually? Because we saw Lenny Krieg make some pretty big kicks, but we also saw Lenny Krieg show that he's not ready to be an every week kicker. And that was my my assertion about it. And then Raheem Morris basically all but confirms that fact and says that he's a developmental prospect, which tells me he didn't do enough this summer. Or maybe even that they didn't see him potentially as a guy who could be that option this year. I mean, you paid a lot of money for that guy. You paid a lot of money for a developmental kicker. And it gets me to start questioning some of the thought process behind that. If you were that worried about Younghoe Koo, then you're going to bring in a veteran who's going to come in here and show, or maybe you draft somebody, maybe you bring in somebody who's ready to be a kicker every week and not Lenny Krieg. So they go do that. Because I don't know how much longer you can roll the dice with Younghoe Koo. He's still the starter. Lenny Krieg, I don't think you can trust him yet. So they go out and sign Parker Romo to the practice squad. He made 11 of his 12 field goal attempts last season when he was at the Minnesota Vikings. He spent training camp with the Patriots, but was released during final roster cuts. I mean, he's one of a handful of guys who were brought in here to come in and do this job. You're going to scrape the bottom of the barrel, but at the end of the day, you need to come in and bring legitimate competition. But this is something that you should have been doing already. I don't know why you didn't do this in the preseason. I don't know why you didn't do this in the offseason when you had more of an opportunity to go and bring in some guys, maybe go get some college guys, go see what they get, do some scouting on some of these other guys. And I'm not saying that Terry didn't do that. I'm just saying those guys didn't show up in camp. They weren't there, not in front of us. I don't know how serious of a kicking battle there actually was. And it would have been fine if Younghoe Koo makes that kick. Then we're not even talking about this. But he missed it. And now we have to talk about it. And it's because this is the second year in a row that we're running into this issue. And the fact of the matter is, you have to be able to trust that your kicker is going to get up there and do the job. Because if you do not trust the process with Younghoe Koo, then it affects game planning. It affects everything that Raheem Morris has to do. And that's one more thing that he has to think about. One more thing that he has to do on Sundays. And I understand that's frustrating. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated in general. But the kicking situation has to get better. And that's really all it comes down to. If it's Younghoe Koo or if it's somebody else, the Falcons have to have somebody that they can trust to get up there and make kicks when he has to make kicks. Period. That's all there is to it. And I think it's going to be Younghoe Koo until further notice. I think that the wick is burnt. And the leash is done. And if he misses any more kicks, if he struggles at any point throughout now to in perpetuity, at least throughout the rest of this season, until he builds up some more of that cachet, that emotional cachet, I think is what Raheem Morris called it. The emotional equity, I think was actually the term. Until he builds that right back up, then he's going to be, I think that you have to have a short leash. You have to be quick with it. And look, you saw, what was it? Jake Moody, who is the San Francisco 49ers kicker, or was the San Francisco 49ers kicker. He was released this morning. He was a third-round pick just a couple of years ago. Third-round pick. Younghoe Koo has been with this organization for a long time. I understand that. And you have some emotional equity with him. I think it's more probably closer to the line to emotional baggage at this point. But look, you have to be able to make quick decisions in the NFL. You have to be able to make quick decisions. And to this point, the Falcons have not been able to do that. I think this isn't just a criticism of Terry Fontenot. This is a criticism of this goes back to Thomas Dimitroff and things that you saw with Tack McKinley was a failure, and they hung around with him too long. Vic Beasley was a failure. They hung around with him too long. Kyle Pitts, we'll talk about him a little bit later in the show, but we've hung around with him a little too long. Kirk Cousins, they've hung around with him a little too long. It's just a lot of these decisions that they make. Some of the great organizations know when to cut bait. They know when to move on. And to this point, the Falcons haven't really shown me that they are consistent enough with that fact. But what are you going to do with the kicker position? Younghoe Koo's your guy for further notice. But I think at this point, you're just sitting there kind of hoping that you don't run into the situation again. And that's not where you want to be. All right. Excuse me. Let me get a quick cough in there. All right. So I see a bunch of people have jumped in here. We got a bunch of people across all of our platforms. I got a couple dozen all over the place. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are new here, my name is Garrett Chapman. This is the Falcons Podcast here. We do this every single Tuesday and Thursday here. And Scott, he is back on Mondays and Wednesdays alongside of Nick. And they are going to be back again tomorrow. I see some comments are starting to flow in. Christian, what's up, my guy? Terry Clark says, afternoon, ATL and Garrett. Glad to hear the movement is replaced the coup department. They're making decisions. They're starting to move along. Austin says, the good old pistol formation Falcons. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in just a second. But let's get into some of the things I liked and didn't like here from week one. Yes, the Falcons lose 23-20. I think that ultimately, this is a team who, they needed this game. I said that before. It's not going to be the game that makes or breaks your season. Better not be. It's freaking week one for heaven's sake. But I did see some things. The first big thing that I didn't like this week, and we'll start with the things that I don't like, and we'll finish with some positive things before I get over to your questions. First thing that I didn't like, obviously, it's the kicking position. I did not like that whatsoever. And I've already gone. I did 10 minutes on that already, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But point number, let's keep on rolling. It's the rushing offense. I understand that you had to deal with your backup offensive tackle, but he isn't the reason that this offense struggled to move the ball on the ground. I think Elijah Wilkins was largely okay. He had the one really bad drive. He has a couple of false starts. He gives up a sack to Hassan Reddick. No, he isn't the reason that they couldn't run the ball. It's Ryan Newsel and Chris Lindstrom. Matthew Bergeron. It's your interior three who just got whipped off of the ball. Excuse me. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Give me a second. Ooh, excuse me. I had something cut in my throat there. But no, Vita Vea, he whips you in the middle and you struggle in short yardage situations. And I always say this, and it's like, if you cannot win in situations where it's 4th and 1, if you can't go get 1 yard, doesn't matter where you are, if you're on the goal line, if you're at midfield, if you cannot go get 1 yard in football, you don't deserve to win the game. I long say that. And the Falcons struggled to get the 1 yard on Sunday. They did it. When you're looking at this team, they had the one right at midfield, which is one of the situations I'm going to talk about here with one of my other key points that I did not like from the Falcons on Sunday. You miss the first 4th and 1, then you get the second 4th and 1, probably by the skin of your teeth. But let's be real. You get Tyler Algier back there, a big bowling ball of a running back, and you barely get over the sticks. Barely. Now, you get it. Whatever. Let's move on. Who cares? But then you're down inside of your 5-yard line, and it takes you 8 plays to score a touchdown. 8 plays, and it takes Michael Penix be Superman, where he's extending that football way over the goal, way up. And if it's not for the fact that this guy's got hands that are massive hands, he doesn't grip that football, and you're not getting it over the sticks, and you're probably not talking about Michael Penix having the game that he did. Just inexcusable. Your offensive line has to be better. You have to get a push. Now, a lot of that is just credit to just the team that Tampa is. Vita Vea is a beast. That front seven's really good. Not an excuse. You have Bijan Robinson. You have Tyler Algier. Raheem Morris talked about it, and a lot of the guys talked about it. You have to be able to run the ball better. Michael Penix threw the ball 42 times. 42 times. And this isn't the first time that the Bucs have done this to you. When he was here on Thursday Night Football last year, Kirk Cousins throws the ball 50 times. You win that game, so you don't talk about it quite as much. You just see the big 500, like he threw for 500 yards in that game. That's what everyone talks about. Not the fact that you couldn't run the ball. You have to be able to run the ball, period. You're not going to win a lot of games in this league if you cannot run, especially if you have that good of a running back tandem. It's unacceptable, and the Falcons have to be better. The next big thing, I mentioned this in just a moment ago, it's the situational awareness. The first one was in the 4th and 1 situation. Why is Bijan Robinson carrying that ball in a 4th and 1? I get that he's a dynamic playmaker. I get that he's your best running back. You need to get Tyler Algier in there. Tyler Algier needs to be your short yardage guy. I don't understand why you're making that decision. Doesn't make sense. You know what else doesn't make sense? Running out of the damn pistol. I don't get it. I don't get it. Go under center, stick your hands up in there, and turn around and hand the ball off. It's not that hard. They've been doing it for forever in the NFL, in football in general. Line up under center. I don't understand it. I need to actually go back and look. I need to go see how often Michael Penix actually does line up under center. That's actually an interesting little nugget. I'll probably do that here as soon as I finish up with this podcast. I might tweet about it. I don't know. Make sure to give me a follow, GChapATL. I'll do that there. But that's the first thing. The next big thing was Ray McCloud in another situation. I believe it was out of a stoppage. I can't remember exactly, but I know that he isn't getting set. And what happens when you don't get set is you can't snap the football. And then you have to burn a timeout. You cannot afford to do that in a divisional matchup. You can't do that in any NFL game. You have to be better. You have to get up to the sticks, and you have to line up, period. The last one is one thing that I don't think anybody has been talking enough about. It's the fact you're on the final drive of this game. You have Michael Penix who's leading this team down the field, and he's doing a great job, and the offense itself was clicking, and that has everything to do with Michael Penix, and I'll talk about him and some of the things that I like. Bijan Robinson absolutely almost cost the Falcons this game. Very nearly. And it's not being talked about nearly enough. He accidentally stepped out of bounds on that play. It was very much an accident. He tried not to step out and then kept pushing the ball up the field. He cuts into the inside of the field. He's just trying to make a play. I understand it. You're a football player. You want to make a play. But you're a third-year pro, and you understand that you don't have any timeouts. You have no timeouts, and your clock is ticking. I think at this point, you had like 30-ish seconds. Bijan Robinson has to know that he needs to step out of bounds. Like, there's absolutely no excuse for that. And he got lucky. The Falcons got lucky that he steps out of bounds right there. And, I mean, maybe the timeout came a little early. I would have used it on that next play. I would have kept it in my pocket there for a second, but at least he used it. I'm talking to Raheem Morris there. I'm not going to be super critical on that, but I am going to be critical on the fact that Bijan Robinson needs to be smarter in that situation on that final drive. These guys need to know that time is your friend, and getting an extra 4 or 5 yards is not going to do any good for you. Because look, I've harped on it enough. All right, let's get into another thing that I didn't like. And this one doesn't have as much to do with the play on the field. It has as much to do with who is on the field. The injuries in that wide receiver room, oh boy, they're starting to get a little concerning. And I see some people have dropped some comments here just asking, what's the update on Drake? What's the update on Darnell? And we don't have anything yet. We're not going to know anything until we get to camp tomorrow, or up to Flowery Branch tomorrow. It's not camp anymore. It's just practice. I do know that they're day-to-day. I know that they're hopeful, they're optimistic, but I mean, it's word sauce. I mean, they're just working, saying things or whatever. I don't know what exactly their situation is going to be. Not until they tell us, at least. But Raheem Morris says he feels good about Drake. We saw the report that came out from Ian Rappaport saying that he's day-to-day with a shoulder injury. Darnell Mooney says Raheem said he feels good about him too, and he warmed up before the game and was a game time decision and just wasn't able to go. But I mean, it's the fact that Casey Washington also got banged up at one point in this game. Jamal Agnew, now he's not really a primary receiver necessarily, but he also got banged up in this game. He's still designated as a wide receiver. He got banged up. And Mooney specifically, we'll start there before we get into the big one with Drake. Darnell Mooney is a very, very important piece to this puzzle, because something that you saw specifically from Penix is, and I don't blame this as much on Penix. I think there are a lot of factors: the defense you're playing, the offensive line, and the situation that it's in. But this team was not throwing the ball effectively down the field. And that was something that I really was anticipating this team doing better this season. It was something that Michael Penix does really well just by himself. They were throwing a lot of screen passes. They were staying right around the line of scrimmage. 23 of 30 passes here for Michael Penix came in front of 10 yards. So 10 yards or less. He was 4 of 12. 4 of 12 on passes 10 yards or more down the field. Now, some of those I think were late in the game. You had a couple of those where he's kind of going for it all. Kadero Hodge and Casey Washington, but those plays down the left sideline. I think they were the right decisions. It's not like he was overthrowing or having bad passes on it or anything else like that. But not having Darnell Mooney in that situation is a very important thing here for this Falcons team. You need him if you want to have your full playbook. And they didn't have it. And I think it was very clear that you don't have a good deep threat. Casey Washington's fine. I think Casey Washington's good. He's a fun story. I really enjoyed talking to him all summer. But you need Darnell Mooney. I think that's really what became painfully clear, is that you need to have Darnell Mooney on this team if you want to have your full playbook open to you. And that gets me concerned here about this team. I said it in camp. I said it in preseason. I've said it for a long time, that the depth at the wide receiver position on this team is paper thin. It is so worrisome to me that they did not make any additions in that room to that wide receiver position. Very worrisome. And you're banking on health. You really are. And Darnell Mooney's got to be able to play. God forbid Drake London doesn't play. And that's huge here for the Falcons. If he doesn't play, I don't know what your passing offense looks like, because you lose your most dynamic playmaker in Drake London on the outside. That's it. And I don't know what Michael Penix is going to do there. Now, you're going to have to see him. And look, he's a young quarterback. You're going to ask him to step up, and he's going to have to step up and do big things. But and he's going to be asked to do that at some point throughout the course of his career, and he's going to have to be ready. So this is just part of being a pro. But what are you without your number one wide receiver? He was targeted 15 times on Sunday. He was targeted 18 times in Tampa not in Tampa, against Carolina last year. That's your top guy. And I wonder what he's going to look like without him if he doesn't go. Now, we don't know if he's not going to be able to go. He's day to day. That's all we know. And that came from Ian Rappaport. It didn't come from the team. Right? So you need to have some health here at this position. It's worrisome. I mean, Casey Washington, he's fine. Like, he's good. Ray McLeod, he's good. He's fine. I think that they're good football players. I think they are complementary football players. They can't be your lead guy, and we saw, Kyle Pitts did step up late in this game. We'll talk about him and some of the things that I did like. But the last thing that I did not like, then we'll get into some positive things. I'm a very positive person. I don't like all this negative stuff, but I appreciate all the folks who are sticking around. I see some more comments coming in. We'll jump into that here in just a little bit. But the last thing that I didn't like from Sunday's game is, and it's not a clutch gene, because I think the clutch gene was had by Michael Penix. And I don't mean to divert away from that fact. It's the fact that the defense specifically lacks the clutch gene, or at least they did in this game. I think they largely played really well. I did. But it's what were they in the big moments? The big moments, they left a little bit of meat on the bone. I think they did a good job in pressuring the quarterback. Really good job. 40% pressure rate. They got up. That's up from 28% from last year. It was among the best in the NFL from week 1, but they only got 1 sack. You got to be able to finish sacks. You have to be able to finish through the play. You have the offense takes you down the field. They get you up. And Rook, you have about a minute to go, and Rook gets flagged for hitting Baker late. I think it was a bit of a flop on Baker, but again, he's got to be smarter. Rook does. You can't put yourself in that situation. That's a big moment there. You end up giving up a 25-yard touchdown late. You have another play where Jesse Bates, on that same play, Jesse Bates is cheating up in coverage. Mike Hughes gets beaten coverage deep, and you lose the game. You got to be better in those situations. You have Caden Ellis dropping an interception that would have turned into a touchdown the other way. You got to make that play. You have Xavier Watts dropping one interception. Divine Diablo, he kind of, I don't know if he dropped it. He kind of dropped it. Yeah, he dropped it. You got to make those plays. And it's the big moments. And that's what's going to separate a team who wins this football game versus a team that loses that football game. And the thing is, we're not talking about Younghoe Koo. If Caden Ellis makes that interception, if James Pierce finishes off the sack where he gets a QB hit, he's almost there. He just about gets it. Almost got his first sack. But if he gets it, we're not talking about Caden Ellis dropping an interception. You know, you have to make the big plays in the big moments, and the Falcons did not do that. Not well enough. Not well enough to win the game, at least. All right. We got 100+ people watching across all platforms, so welcome in. Thank you for joining us. My name is Garrett Chapman. This is the Falcons Podcast. We're talking through, kind of reacting to what we saw on Sunday. Thank you to all the folks who are joining on Facebook, on Twitter, over there on YouTube. If you are following on any of those platforms, make sure to drop a like. I really appreciate that. Helps us get all this content out to other folks. Make sure to share the podcast. So if you have some friends who really like talking Falcons, then do it. Send it over their way. We'd love to join them. We'd love for them to join us. We love talking Falcons with everybody. Most importantly, make sure to hit that subscribe button, especially if you are on YouTube. Anything counts. We always appreciate it. We like to be able to bring this content to you. And the more people that we have subscribed, the better. But let's get into some of the things that I did like here in this game. It wasn't all negative. You lose the game, you start 0-1. That sucks. You lose to the division rival. That sucks even more. Do it week 1 for the 6th time or 7th time in the last 8 years. That sucks most of all. But there were some things that I did like here in this game. And I think it ultimately starts with the quarterback position. Because things that make losing suck less is knowing that you have some potential answers moving forward. This team, for I'd say at least the last 4 years, maybe the last 5 years, has not had a definitive answer at the quarterback position. And that goes back to the very, very tail end of Matt Ryan's career. Just where, I mean, it was clear that this team wasn't going to win with him, not while he was here in Atlanta, and it was just his time had passed. You then go through a carousel of quarterbacks, and then it all comes down to Michael Penix, right? And you lose this game, and I think a lot of the incredible things that Michael Penix was able to do in this game were overshadowed. You have the fact that he is literally displaying a superhero trait with the way that he is down the stretch in games. You talk about 2-minute drives at the end of football games. People threw out that he's 1-3 as a starter. Fine, I get it. But he also led a game-tying or a game-winning drive in each of those football games that he lost. Each one of them. And the one that he won, ironically, was his first career NFL start. The guy's got an it factor that doesn't, it's not normal what he's able to do. And you saw it last night with the Vikings and JJ McCarthy. And we'll talk a little bit more about what they were able to do on Thursday. But Michael Penix has an it factor. And he has 2 superhuman plays that get them a lead in this game. The defense turns around, gives away the lead just moments later, literally like 70 seconds later. And all Michael Penix does is get the ball right back and gets them back into position to tie the game. And if we're not talking about an Antoine Winfield incredible play on Casey Washington. Casey Washington scoring a game-winning touchdown, and people at Mercedes-Benz Stadium are going nuts. If Kadarius Hodge turns his head around, look, it's not his fault. I don't blame him for that. That's not a job that you're asking Kadarius Hodge to do. And Michael Penix said he threw it early. But if Kadarius Hodge gets his head around and his hands up and he catches a pass, again, Falcons win this game. And we're not talking about Younghoe Koo. We're not talking about the clutch plays on a defense. We're not talking about any of these negative things in the same light. But Michael Penix, we would be talking about him still. This guy is a star. He's not a runner, but he'll do it if he has to. I mean, and it's just the fact that his biggest shortcoming, I guess you could say, was the fact that his completion percentage was down. He completed 64% of his passes without his best option, without his second option for the entire game. What he is able to do is very impressive. His big-time throw rate, he led week 1. He was right at the very bottom of turnover-worthy throws. I mean, if you want to go into those deep numbers, but the physical numbers, he counts for over 300 yards of offense. He has 2 touchdowns. I mean, in a perfect world, he's not throwing the ball 42 times, and he has a rushing attack that actually gives him some support. And the Falcons need to give that to him if they want to win games this season. Because this team wants to run the football first and foremost. But Michael Penix showed you that he can win you football games if you have to trust on his left arm. He's very good. He's the future of this franchise, and I think that they found their franchise guy. I'm not I was very slow in wanting to say that he's a franchise quarterback, but he's getting to that level. He started 4 games. 4 games. You're going to have some more ebbs and flows. You have to be willing to accept that you have ebbs and flows, but this guy has the makings of a star. And I think it all comes down to what he's able to do in the final 2 minutes of games. He is a freak in terms of that. And if you want to talk about production too, he's got over 1,000 yards. I think it's 1,035 yards over his first 4 games. That's the most of any Falcons player ever. Ever. More than Matt, more than Vic, more than anybody. Barkowski, Michael Penix has the most through 4 starts. Now, things change quickly. So I don't want to crown him necessarily yet, but he has been extremely, extremely effective, and he was again on Sunday. He's the reason that this team had a chance to win this game. All right, the other big thing is another young player. The young players in general, the 4 defenders. I'm going to start with Xavier Watts just because what he was able to do on Sunday was very impressive. He played 100% of the team snaps, and he led the team in tackles. He had 2 passes defended and nearly had a pair of interceptions. And I think in time, he is going to get to the level where he is one of the top safeties in the league. I think the only thing that might hold him back is just a bit of physical prowess, I guess you could say. But his intelligence is right up there with the best. I'd say, the way that he's able to diagnose as a rookie is incredible. He is going to go in as a steal. I thought he was going to be a second-round pick, first round pick in last spring's draft. And look, Falcons, they got lucky with him. And I think that he showed you why this team was so confident in giving him a start. But not only starting him, you cut Jordan Fuller at the cut day. You saw on Sunday why this team was so confident in being able to do that. And I think Xavier Watts is only going to get better as time goes on. But the thing that stood out most when we talked to Raheem Morris on Monday is the fact that he had a certain kind of game time confidence. That's what he called it. Raheem did for Watts. And it's the way that somebody is able to ramp it up a gear. They find that next gear on game days when they're called upon to do that big stuff and be big in the biggest moments. And Xavier Watts showed that he's able to do that. But he is a very special talent. I think he's only going to get better. Billy Bowman was solid. I think he was altogether pretty good. He notched a half sack in this game. You did basically what he needed to do. I need to go back through and watch it from his perspective and kind of get a deeper eye on them. But I know that Raheem Morris was very complimentary of what Bowman was able to do. He gives you a level of physicality that you were lacking there with D. Alford, and he comes in and he plays 80% of the snaps. He's your guy at the nickel, and I think they've got a pretty good player there. But then the guys in the pass rush, I think Jalen Walker and James Pierce, you talk about, they didn't have the statistical output necessarily. James Pierce had some pretty good advanced numbers. He had the 4 QB pressures. He had the QB hit. Showed that he's got a high ceiling. I think he was definitely held a few times, but whatever. It's the NFL. You have to learn to fight through that, and you have to learn how to make plays despite that fact. And I think James Pierce is going to do that. Jalen Walker, he was used several times in several different ways. He actually outsnapped James Pierce, and he was used kind of in the interior. He was used outside. He lined up at a guard at one point. He's going to be in that situation where he's going to play dropbacks. He's going to rush the passer. He's going to do a lot of different things. And I think they used him in that department more than I expected they would game 1. But he's a smart player. He's the son of a coach. He's somebody who's going to continue to improve. But ultimately, these numbers are going to come from these guys. Look, I talked about it earlier and things that I didn't like. Finishing plays. You have to be able to finish plays. And a 40% pressure rate amounting to 1 sack, I think that has a lot to do with Baker Mayfield and his escapability in the pocket. But you have to be able to finish drives or knock out opponents' drives and finish plays with sacks. I think, again, that's going to come in time. And these are 2 talented players, and I think the Falcons need them to step up and be big in these big moments. And I think they were okay. I think largely Jalen and James, I'd give like a C- maybe. Xavier, I give him like a B+, solid B+. Billy Bowman, I guess a B- in this game. But week 1, I think that a lot of these guys are going to get better, and they have a lot of room for improvement as well. So a lot to get excited about there with your rookies. But then as far as, I'm going to keep it on the defense, and it's somebody who if you've been listening to this podcast every single week, I've been twice a week, I've been talking about Divine Diablo. I've written about him. You can check it out, si.com/NFL/Falcons. Falcons on SI if you just want to Google that. Go look at some of the things that I've said about Divine Diablo. Go look at some of the things that the players have said about Divine Diablo. Go look at some of the things that the coaches have said about Divine Diablo. And I mean his teammates, I mean the guys on the other side of the ball on offense, they have had so many glowing things to say about this guy. And he showed you why on Sunday. The dude is all over the field. He is a difference maker at the second level. And ironically, Caden Ellis, who I didn't feel had that bad of a game. I know PFF, I mean, take it, again, with a grain of salt. It's put as much stock as you believe it deserves. But they ranked him as one of the lowest players. I think it was actually the lowest rated Falcons player in this game. I think that was a little dramatic, but you didn't feel that because you had Divine Diablo next to him. And this guy was all over the field. It's all over the field. And I said, look out for this guy, Divine Diablo. He had a half sack in this game. He tied for the team lead in tackles in this game. He had a quarterback hit in this game. He had 4 pressures in this game. He nearly had an interception in this game. He had a big pass breakup on Mike Evans in this game. He was everywhere. Everywhere. Long arms, great speed, good instincts, sideline to sideline. He does it all. And I think that he's only going to get better. And this attack style defense that he is in with Jeff Ulbrich is tremendous. The last big thing, though, Kyle Pitts. In a positive way. I've been critical of Kyle Pitts. I've been critical of him here. I've been critical of him at Sports Radio 92.9 The Game when I have shows and I have discourse there. I've been critical of this guy. I think rightfully so. But at the same time, I need to turn around and give him his flowers. He had a great game. He had a really good game. And I saw some people were criticizing him on social or whatever. I think those people are foolish. I don't think they know what they were talking about. He had a great game. And it's the fact that you have Drake London go down in this game. You don't have Darnell Mooney in this game. And Kyle Pitts stepped up. He had 7 of his 8 targets that he caught. 59 yards. It's not the craziest stat line, but it's 38 yards of that came after the catch. It's the effort that was there that I personally, and I'm not going to sit here and question people's effort necessarily. Generally, I don't like to do that. I just knew it was very popular to criticize Kyle Pitts on his effort, but it was very clear that guy was busting his ass on Sunday. He was stiff-arming guys and getting up the field and fighting for extra yardage, and that's not something I've seen from him since his rookie year. And that year he goes for 1,000 yards. That was by far his best season. It looked like he was going to take the NFL by storm still. And you saw a little bit of that on Sunday, especially when the Falcons needed him when Drake London goes down with the injury. He was targeted twice on that final drive. And he caught both and he advanced it. I mean, I think he picked up 6 first downs in this game, 5, 6, 7 first downs on during this game. It was incredible. This was the best game that I've seen from Kyle Pitts in a very long time. At least since, I mean, he had the 2 games against Tampa last year. Maybe it's just against Tampa. We'll see. But that's somebody who I'm going to be following here when we get to week 2 to see if he can follow up on that. I was very impressed with that. And if you believe in, I don't believe in extrapolating numbers, but extrapolate that out. 136 targets, over 1,000 yards. I'll take that. And I know that any Falcons fan would too. All right. Time to jump to your comments. I see a bunch of people have started asking questions. Sorry, I had to get a cough in there. Excuse me. All right. I'm going to come roll through. And if you do have questions, if you have things that you are saying, if you have things that you want to hear about, make sure to drop it in there. Let's keep on going. I see Christian, you were having a conversation with Terry. I'm going to keep on going through here. Yeah, Austin mentions, in all fairness, that game shouldn't have come down to a game-tying field goal and go to overtime. Yeah, you're right. That game absolutely should not have come down to Younghoe Koo. If we're being very serious, we're blaming Younghoe Koo, not we. That's kind of a royal we. A lot of Falcons folks are blaming Younghoe Koo because he missed the kick. And look, he missed the kick. If you're called upon to make big plays, you have to be able to make big plays, especially if you're a kicker. You're going to be called on only a handful of times every single game. What are you going to do in those moments, right? So that's an important thing. But no, the Falcons should have won the game with Michael Penix. It should have been over. Should have been done. But the Falcons defense surrenders the lead in about 70 seconds of game time, and that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And I think that's not getting enough criticism as of today. Terry Clark comes in and says, you just can't come into a game knowing your kicker has the yips and is unreliable. Koo needs to be gone, and I agree with Austin. Our offense is most effective from under center. Got to get out of the pistol. I don't necessarily fully agree with what you have to say there. They run a lot out of the pistol. And I think this offense is perfectly fine running under the pistol. Just on short yardage situations. I just don't like it in that sort of spot. I just get up under center, get down there, and snap the ball there. That's where you need to be doing it. But as far as knowing your kicker has the yips, I don't think they knew that that he had the yips at the time. I think that ultimately, this is a guy who he's been consistent for you. And I think Raheem Morris, almost to a fault, believes in his guys. And Raheem Morris is going to ride with his guys. Koo is one of his guys. But I think it's also very telling that they've now started pulling in other people. I just think it's too late. I think they should have done it in the offseason. I think you should have ramped up to it. But better late than never, I guess. But it still would have been much better if you did it earlier. But coming into this game, he seemed like he had a really good offseason. Preseason, he misses the one kick against Dallas, but ultimately, I still felt like he was ready to go. And and if you're ready to go, and if you say you're ready to go, mentally and physically, you need to come out and be ready to go, and he wasn't. All right, John Robert over on Facebook, he says, I wanted to win, but it's the first game. Time to improve. You're right. There's a lot of room for this team to improve, and I think they will. Give it time. Games aren't won and lost seasons aren't won and lost in the first game of the season. That's not how this world works. It's not how this league works. I'm not going to compare this team 1-to-1 with what Baltimore is, but Baltimore lost this first 2-3 games of the season last year. They go on and they have a pretty damn good season last year. But this team doesn't have a 2-time MVP at quarterback. So I guess it's a little bit different for this team there, and I'm not going to do that comparison. But my point is that you are not going to win and lose your season based off of the first game. Yes, John Robert, they signed a kicker to the practice squad. Yes, they did. We talked a little bit about that earlier in the show. Terry comes in here and says, defense played well for the most part, played way more aggressively. Watts Bowman looked good. The pass rush was disruptive, disappointed, and didn't end in sacks or a pick from Baker. Came really close. But like I mentioned when I was going through the things I didn't like, it's not about coming close all the time. Sometimes it's about getting your guy off the spot. I've heard that a lot. Sometimes it's getting the pass breakup, but a couple times a game, you need to be able to finish plays. You have to, if you want to win those games. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it well enough. August 809 says, Koo lost his confidence. They better make the change before he costs them another game. Cost at least 2 games last season. Don't let the kicker ruin this season. I get where you're coming from. And look, he did cost them some games last year. He also won you some games last year. Don't forget. You have that first game against New Orleans where he kicks a 60-yard freaking field goal, basically, and wins them the football game. So Younghoe Koo, he does have you talk about that cachet that's built up. There's a reason for it. And look, you gotta hope the process kind of keeps rolling in. K9 Rottweiler, hey man, appreciate the shout out. Yes, thank you for the donation. Anybody who makes donations, I really appreciate you. It helps me keep the lights on here. So I really appreciate you, K9. Any word on Zach Robinson improving the play calls? It's week one. I don't want to put too much into just what we saw in this first game, right? Last season against the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was a much worse situation. But I will say this, just about Zach Robinson. I think that he gets a little too married to the game plan. I think he's good at making a game plan. I think he's good at calling plays in general, but he's not all that great necessarily, in my opinion, at diverting from what he comes into a game originally thinking. I think that's where he still needs to grow just in general as a play caller, and that comes in time. It's just you're the offensive coordinator of an NFL team, and that's one thing that these guys don't have is time. So to answer your question, no, there's no telling. That's just going to come in time and us watching him just like you are. But we shall see. We're just going to continue to follow that situation, and hopefully it does get better. I know that they're going to be counting on him. But look, you've got a great offensive line, or excuse me, a great quarterback. You have questionable offensive line just with Elijah Wilkinson at the right side. I think largely the offensive line was okay. You allowed some pressure. But I think Zach Robinson was almost coaching a little scared there a little bit. He wasn't throwing the ball down the field nearly as much as I wanted him to. But you're banged up. You don't have your top deep threat in this game. You lose Drake London. You lose your right tackle, your backup right tackle. And I think he's got to do better at adjusting, and he's got to find some answers. John Robert says, like and share. Yes, like and share. Thank you so much, my friend. All the love. Thank you. Go Veta Vic says, hello, everyone. What's up, my man? What's up? I'm going to keep on rolling through. He says, Austin says that last drive really pissed me off. As soon as I saw them take the ball out on the kick, I wasted an extra 8 seconds on the clock. I mean, you let the ball go, and I mean, I don't know. I that's not the spot where I would necessarily criticize them. That somebody's trying to go and make a play, trying to get yourself some extra yards. And the dynamic kickoff, I will say this too about that specifically, is set up for you to go and get more yards on kickoffs. It's set up for that. That's what it's there to do. And time is of the essence. And I wouldn't criticize them necessarily for that one. You would be critical of that if they're not going north-south. If they're going east-west, then you would be very critical of that, because then at that point you are wasting time. Kind of like what we saw with Bijan, like we talked a little earlier. John Robert comes in and says, how is Drake London? Day-to-day. He's just day-to-day. We were not up at Flowery Branch today. We will be back up at Flowery Branch tomorrow, so we'll have an update there. I guarantee you, that is the first thing that is going to be asked. That and Darnell Mooney. We'll see what the health status is of those guys. Let's keep on rolling through. August 809 says, real improvement in the pass rush compared to last season. Baker is hard to bring down. Yes, he's very hard to bring down. Folks, there's a reason this guy was the number 1 overall pick a couple of years ago. It's because he's very good in the pocket. He's very good in the pocket. And the thing is, he's elevated his game elsewhere. He's just a really good quarterback. He's really good. And he's continued to elevate his game and take it to the next level. And I'm very impressed with what we saw from Baker. I think you had some pretty good plays from the defense, but Baker made some better throws. You know, I mean, you had the play to the 2 touchdown passes to Emeka Egbuka, just perfect passes. You know, I mean, you have the one that it's not Casey Washington necessarily getting beat. It's Jesse Bates cheating up more than anything, and he just gets beat over the top. And then the other one, I mean, it's just a perfect throw. It misses Xavier Watts' fingertips by about this much. So it is tight, but that's the game of football. It's a game of inches. And Baker Mayfield's shown that he can improve there. Go Veta Vic says, I have a suggestion. George Bulldog kicker Blankenship for coup. Replacement as replacement kicker. I don't even know the last time Hot Rod kicked. Rodrigo Blankenship kicked at Georgia. He bounced around the NFL for a little bit. He was okay in the NFL. I don't think he's necessarily, I think there's a reason that he's not one of the guys who's being invited. I don't know what that reason is. I don't evaluate kickers. I just know if they make the kicks or not. And I know that he struggled when he was around the end of his tenure in Indianapolis. I know he's doing a show. I think it's on Fox 5 or maybe WSB. I can't remember where he is, but he's doing something locally. So I'm sure he'll pick up the phone and call or go check it out. So who knows? But no, I mean, they've already signed some guy. It's Romo. He's going to come in here and be the practice squad guy just to provide some more depth there. Let's keep on rolling. Going. Falcon Dog 10-022 or 1022 says, thought we operated well without Drake and Mooney. I'd say that the drive went well, all things considered, but I would say that it would have been significantly better if you had Drake or Darnell in this game. It went well because Kyle Pitts stepped up. It went well because Bijan Robinson stepped up. I'd say that Kadero Hodge, if you have Darnell Mooney or Drake London making that play instead of Kadero Hodge, the Falcons win that football game. I'd say if you have Casey Washington in there, but if you have Drake or Mooney in that play, Falcons win this football game. It's simple as that. And that's where it comes through. I mean, the Falcons operate well. Yes, the Falcons had to operate well. And I think that comes down to Michael Penix as much as it does anything else and his clutch gene and the way that he is in the final 2 minutes of the game. But I think we're talking about this game differently if those guys are healthy or if you had more elevated depth behind him, which I just don't think that they have. I'm not super thrilled with what they have talent-wise behind him. I think they're fine as placeholders or as supplemental pieces, but not as primary pieces like they were on that final drive. And that's also one drive. I worry more if you look at these guys and you're starting to lean on them over the course of a full football game, full 4 quarters. That's where I kind of get very antsy. Can you trust these guys to step in and be effective down the stretch? Keep on going through. Marcus Cook says Morris said he's day-to-day. No, yes, he's day-to-day. I'm assuming you're talking about Drake London. Yes, he is day-to-day. We're going to keep on rolling through. Keep on going through. If you still have some comments, I'm happy to jump in to hear some of them. I'm trying to read them and think at the same time, so I appreciate you bearing with me here just a second. Yeah, here we go. Terry Clark comes in here, says, Falcons have to be able to run the ball. Can't expect Penix to play much better than he did without the support of the run in a win, and he still could have pulled it out. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, like, look, the rushing offense did not give you anything. I mean, the fact that you have Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson combining to run for 48 yards it's unacceptable. You have to do better in that. I mean, those guys are way too good. Your team is way too reliant on the ability to run the football to not have 2 running backs who are giving you enough there. It's not these guys' fault. I just think maybe it's play calling. Maybe it's just the offensive line. Maybe it's just Vita Vea whipping their ass up front. I think it's a lot of different things, but all it comes down to is that this team was not able to run effectively. And Tyler Algier, guys like that, you have to get more out of those guys. Joe Andrews says, we're not blaming Koo. He missed a lot last year. Yeah. I mean, you got to blame Koo. I mean, he missed a lot last year. He was also injured last year. So keep that in mind, which is why they gave him the other opportunity to come back. But he's healthy now and he missed. That's why you're bringing in competition to come be with him. Joe mentions, and he hit one off of the goalpost. Yes. Yeah, he didn't. He clanged one and he got kind of lucky that it bounces in. If he misses that one too, we're also talking about it. But also the other thing about this game, and this is a perfect example of this. We're not talking about Chase McLaughlin, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kicker, who misses an extra point. No one talks about the fact that he missed the extra point. No one talks about the fact that he missed a field goal earlier in the game. He left 4 points on the board. That is also a difference in this game. If the Falcons go and win this game, that's what everybody's talking about. Everyone's talking about him going and missing these kicks. It's just game flow in the moments, and you have to be ready to step up in your moment. And sometimes you get bailed out like Chase did. So Younghoe Hugh just didn't get bailed out. All right, keep on rolling through. Hucklebuck 71 says all phases of the game have let Michael Penix down over his first 4 games. Coaching, offense, defense, and special teams. He should be 4-0 in his first starts, period. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a very reasonable argument to be made for this. It's the fact that he dominated the Giants, right? You could beat that team 34-7, but then he goes up to Washington on Sunday Night Football. He leads a game-winning drive in that one. Doesn't touch the ball on the next in overtime. Carolina Panthers. I mean, first off, you shouldn't be giving up that many points to the Carolina Panthers, first and foremost. But second of all, he leads a game-tying drive and does not get the ball back in overtime. Against the Buccaneers, leads a game-winning drive. Defense lets him down, and then the special teams unit lets him down. So Hucklebuck 71, I mean, you have a very good point. We don't know if he would have stepped up against just an overtime against the Panthers or against the Commanders, but didn't get the opportunity. He didn't get the opportunity because the defense didn't give him the chance. So your point is well received. We're going to keep on rolling down. Keep on rolling. We got a lot of great comments here. Lav S says Zach needs to spam Kyle Pitts crossing routes and let him feast and yak. He had a great day. Yards after catch. He was fantastic in this regard. I mean, over half of his yards that he picked up came as yards after the catch. I think if he's able to continue to do this and show that effort, I think all signs are pointing up here for the unicorn tight end. I think he's finally going to jump in there and do it. James Dunn says the Falcons need a better runner. I don't know. That's what does that have to do with anything? I think Arthur Blank is one of the best owners in the sport. I mean, I don't agree with that. Brandon James says Diablo is a beast. Divine Diablo is probably the biggest bright spot in this game of somebody not named Michael Penix. I was very impressed with what we saw from Divine Diablo, and I think he's only going to get better. He fits this scheme so well. And we know what Jeff Ulbrich can do with converted safeties too, right? He did it with Foye Oluokun a few years ago when he led the NFL in tackles. He was a converted safety from Yale. Divine Diablo is converted safety from Virginia Tech. Smart school, smart guy. He's sharp. He knows football. He does it really well, and he has the athletic traits to be a menace in the middle. And he's also big too. Like when I first met him, he comes into the indoor facility. It was raining that day, and I looked over my right because he had just walked in. I didn't see him come in at the time, and I'm like, oh, that's a defensive lineman. Who the hell is that guy? I haven't seen him. And I was like looking at my roster, whatever, just because I didn't recognize him off the bat. I'm like, no, that's Divine Diablo. Oh, the inside linebacker. That's how big he is. He's a monster. He's just a big dude. And he runs like a deer. And like the guy is just very effective. Let's keep on coming through. Harold, I see you talking. Yeah. So Harold comes in here. He says just about lining up under center. I think that the Falcons need to be lining up under center. I think that ultimately, if you're not, you need to give yourself every single opportunity to succeed. And I don't think you're doing that well enough, just in general. And you have to do it better. You have to line up under center on these short yardage situations. That's just, I'll stake my flag into that. Let's keep on coming through. Yeah, the first game ain't a division game. It was a division game. I don't know what you're talking about, Harold. So Harold's over on Facebook says the first game ain't a division game. It is a division game. It was a game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC South. Won the division the last 4 years in a row. Keep on rolling through. Derek Hart, our special teams were horrid, not just the coup laps. The coup laps is going to get all the attention. But Bradley Pinion also had a punt sail on him in this game. Coup also missed the landing zone, if you will. They got the ball in plus territory. I think it was like 30, 40-yard line. They got it automatically right there to start a drive. But Bradley Pinion also sailed a punt a little bit longer than he needed to. He didn't get the airtime that he needed. And coverage wasn't able to get down the field fast enough. And then the Buccaneers get the ball at midfield because it sparks a big return. They get a touchdown drive out of that. Those are plays that change football games, and special teams did not do a good enough job, period. On Sunday, they were not good enough. Moving on. Terry Clark agrees special teams were a disaster. Yeah, they were. Keep on rolling through. Rusty Moore Jr. says, bang, bang, bang. So we're going to ignore Raheem's comment about Koo having emotional equity built in with him. Ra's mentality of everyone needs to be his friend will ultimately cost him his job. I didn't ignore it. I said it. I actually said it twice on this podcast. Rusty Moore, I appreciate the question. I appreciate the comment. I mentioned it twice. I said I was critical of it. I've been critical of emotional equity just in general with players in the NFL. These are business transactions. This is the same way that you need to treat a business, period. If somebody's not doing their job properly, they need to be let go, period. And that's just kind of how it goes. I understand building up trust and that stuff matters. But in a zero-sum type of business, it matters a lot more, and it was something that we saw Arthur Blank do. Just someone mentioned Arthur Blank, so now he's on the mind. It's like when he turned around and called Julio Jones and Matt Ryan and Grady Jarrett and these other guys Falcons for life because of emotional equity that he had with these guys. It screws up your ability to run the organization and to sign these guys to contracts. And that ended up hurting this team. And that's one of the reasons why this team is in the midst of a 7-year losing streak, right? Where this team is not able to put everything together. Mistakes have been made. And a lot of it comes down to being a little emotional about some of these decisions that you make. And they have to be better about that. Gabriel Rogers says, I don't know how you can miss that badly from 40 yards in a dome. It's why they brought in another kicker. It's why they brought in another kicker. K9 Rottweiler, here's a question. Ray McLeod had a few good catches. What is his potential to play a larger role? He's got a great potential to play a larger role. I was surprised he wasn't featured more in this game. I think he's going to be, he's a prototypical wide receiver 3. He's somebody who wants to kind of jump into the slot and kind of move all around, and he's going to be your flanker. I was surprised that he didn't have a more established role in this game. I would expect that he does moving forward. Just the game plan. I don't know. But I think that if you have prolonged issues with Drake and with Darnell, you're going to have to find a way to get him involved, because that guy then becomes your top wide receiver on the depth chart. So you're going to have to figure something out with him. So he's one of those guys who's going to have to step up in a big way. Kyle Pitts is another guy who's going to have to step up in a big way. But we shall see. Terry Clark says, watched McCarthy last night, kid his guts. It's going to be a game against Minnesota. The team better bring their best for a tough road win to get 0-2. Looks a lot different for Raheem and Terry. 0-2 would be a disaster of a start for this season. I think that the early portions of the season in the NFL are extremely, extremely important, because it shapes through every other decision that you make down the stretch. Because if you're 0-2, all of a sudden you're starting to make tight decisions. You're starting to get maybe a little desperation starts to factor in, and other things like that. And you just want to avoid all of it as much as you possibly can. And getting up to 500 here early in the season, because I wasn't all that impressed with what I saw from Minnesota up until they realized that they were playing Chicago and that they were the better football team, and they kind of snapped in a gear, and McCarthy kind of put the team on his back and played much better down the stretch. Which version of Minnesota are we going to see? Falcons are a much better team than Chicago. I just think that they're better than Chicago is. But this is also a Minnesota team who just blitzed you in the fourth quarter last year, in that game last year. You cannot afford to do that again. You have to be able to close stronger, and this is a Vikings team that knows how to close. They're well coached. They've got a lot of veteran talent on this team, and they're going to be a very difficult team to beat. But you cannot afford to start 0-2. That would be a disaster of a start to this season. And especially when you've got Buffalo and Washington and and another divisional matchup here coming up with Carolina, a team who wants to beat you, a team that you've historically struggled with in Carolina. So every one of these games, you cannot afford to start slow. And the way that this schedule lines up, there's a very real chance that you start 0-4. And you cannot afford to do that. You have to get off the mat here coming into week 2 on Sunday Night Football. I think the world's going to get a look at Michael Penix, though, and I think they're going to be very excited about what they find here when the quarterback rolls out there. Derek Hart says, I had a dream after Buffalo. We're 4-1 and number 4 in power rankings. From your mouth to God's ear. How about that, Derek? I think that'd be pretty great. If they're 4-1, I think I don't even think then they'd be number 4 in power rankings, but I think they would be a lot closer to that after the fact. They'd actually be 5-1. 5-1, I believe, would be the number there. I think that's week 6, if I'm just going off the top of my head. But here we go. Jordan Sheffield says, to run effectively, they have to throw more on first down. Only way to get teams to not stack the box for Bijan. I didn't actually go look at this. I watched the game. I didn't see a lot of stacked boxes necessarily, but I need to go actually look at some of the numbers and jump into that. That's a great point, Jordan. And I'll do that, and I'll have that ready for you when I get into the podcast on Thursday. Keep on rolling through. Odd take. So Rio Deshaun Alexander Smith, he comes over. Rio says, odd take. I wholeheartedly believe that had Tampa converted that extra point, we would have a way to score a touchdown. Us only needing 3 made us have to rely on Koo. They didn't have to rely on Koo. They took several shots, Rio. They had 2 shots at the end zone, and they took them. Maybe if you have it changes the game, and the game plan is completely different. They're going to be doing different things. They're taking more shots, but they did take shots, and they had 2 really good opportunities. And if it wasn't for a Winfield pass breakup and Kadero Hodge not getting his head turned around fast enough, or maybe Michael Penix just threw the ball too early. He said he did, but look, if Kadero Hodge gets his head turned around, or if he has Drake or Darnell receiving there, then they'd probably catch it. But they were taking shots at the end zone. So I don't understand your point fully, because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to go for the win. Kenan Rottweiler says that he's excited for Xavier Watts and what he's going to do over the next couple of weeks. I'm thrilled. I am thrilled about what's going on here over the next couple of weeks. I'm very, very excited. Frisco Gaming, we have a bye week, week 5. Yes, but the Bills are week 6. And he was saying after the Bills game. So we would have 6 games, I believe you would have there. Just that's all I was saying with that. But all right. But no, look, the Falcons have a lot of potential. The Falcons have a lot of opportunities. The Falcons have everything is still in front of this team. I saw a lot of pessimism on social media. I saw a lot of pessimism from people. I don't share in that pessimism. I think that this team showed me a lot of really good things. I think that they need to figure out some things, specifically that kicker position and what they're going to do there. But ultimately, this is a team who they have the pieces. They have the blueprint of a team who can make a playoff run. And I still think that that's very much within the cards. It just got a whole hell of a lot harder. That's all. And you cannot start stacking losses. You have to be able to get up off the mat. This is a very important game. I'm not going to call it a must-win game. You could say that about every game in the NFL. Every game is a must-win game. That's just how tight this league is. But losing games that you have an opportunity to win, or in my belief that you should have won, Falcons should have won that game against the Buccaneers, but they didn't. And they have to be better. They have to start finishing plays. They have to start finishing drives. They got to run the ball better. They got to make their damn kicks. All right. Remember, Scott and Nick, they're going to go live 8:30 on Mondays and Wednesdays. And if there's any content that you want to see, drop it in a comment. Hit me up on Twitter. That's the best way to do it, at GChapATL. But we will be back again on Thursday at 6 o'clock with our next pod. So we start looking ahead to next week. It's the Minnesota Vikings. So make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe, especially if you're over there on YouTube. Stay up to date. If you're on Spotify, thank you so much for jumping in there. Make sure to hit that subscribe there as well. But give me a follow at GChapATL. Check out all the content that we have coming up. Head on over to si.com/NFL/Falcons, or just Google Falcons on SI on Google. You can get their fix there too. My name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. I will see you all very soon. But until next time, go Falcons.